Admiral Zex Thera watched the tactical display with growing unease. The Galactic War had raged for 3 standard cycles, consuming entire star systems in its wake. The Corvani Empire's red markers dominated the outer rim, while the blue dots of the Democratic Alliance grew smaller each day. "Another sector has fallen," reported Commander Yilak, his scaled hands trembling as he updated the holographic map. The Corvani pushed through the Helios defense line. "We've lost contact with 12 worlds." The bridge of the Alliance flagship times, Eternal Resolve times, hummed with desperate activity. Officers from a dozen different species worked frantically at their stations, their various breathing apparatus and environmental suits creating a symphony of alien sounds. Yet despite their technological superiority and numerical advantage early in the war, they were losing badly. "What about the reinforcements from the Zentari?" Admiral Zex Thera asked, her 4 eyes scanning the battlefield projections. "Delayed again." The Corvani intercepted their supply convoy near the Rigel Nebula. "The Zentari are requesting another 2 weeks to reorganize their fleet." Zex Thera's mandibles clicked in frustration. 2 weeks they didn't have. The Corvani war machine seemed unstoppable, their tactics brutal and efficient. They didn't just conquer worlds, they stripped them bare, harvesting every useful resource and leaving behind barren rocks. Entire civilizations had been reduced to refugee camps scattered across Alliance space. "Ma'am," interrupted Lieutenant Kess, a young Altaran with bioluminescent patches flickering nervously along her neck. "We're receiving a transmission from the Sol system." The bridge fell silent. Every officer knew about the Sol system, that strange little corner of space where a species called humans had developed. They'd been observers of the Galactic Council for barely 50 standard years, having only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. Most of the galaxy considered them primitives, barely worth acknowledging. "The Sol system?" Zex Thera repeated, confused. "They're not even official Alliance members. What could they possibly want?" "The transmission is from someone called Admiral Chen. She says humanity is formally requesting to join the Alliance war effort." A few officers exchanged glances, some releasing what could only be described as alien chuckles. The humans wanted to join the war? Their technology was centuries behind the major powers. Their ships were crude metal constructs held together with primitive fusion reactors. They'd contributed nothing to galactic civilization except some interesting mathematical theories and surprisingly complex music. "Put them through," Zex Thera decided. Perhaps some comic relief would boost morale. The main screen flickered, revealing a middle-aged human female in a simple blue uniform. Behind her, the bridge of what was obviously a human vessel looked almost comically basic compared to the advanced interfaces surrounding Zex Thera. "Admiral Zex Thera," the human said with a slight bow of her head. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Force. We've been monitoring the situation." "Admiral Chen," Zex Thera replied diplomatically. "While we appreciate any support, I must be honest. This conflict involves weapons and strategies far beyond what your species has encountered. Perhaps humanitarian aid would be more appropriate?" Admiral Chen smiled, and something in that expression made Zex Thera pause. It wasn't the smile of someone asking for a favor. It was the smile of someone who held cards no one else knew they possessed. "Admiral, with respect, we've been studying this war very carefully. Our mathematicians have run extensive simulations. Our strategists have analyzed every battle, every victory, every defeat. We believe we can end this conflict decisively." The bridge erupted in barely contained laughter. Even Zex Thera struggled to maintain diplomatic composure. End the conflict? These humans couldn't even properly shield their own communication frequencies. "Admiral Chen, the Corvani Empire fields over 10,000 capital ships, each one larger and more powerful than anything in your fleet. Their warriors are genetically engineered for combat, enhanced with cybernetic implants that make them nearly impossible to kill. What exactly do you propose to contribute?" The human's smile widened. "Time, Admiral. Give us 5 hours of coordinated fleet positioning, and we'll demonstrate something the galaxy has never seen before." 5 hours? Commander Yilak scoffed openly. "The siege of Proxima lasted 8 months. The humans are clearly suffering from some form of species-wide delusion," whispered another officer. But Admiral Chen seemed unperturbed by their reaction. "Admiral Zex Thara, I'm transmitting our strategic proposal now. I think you'll find it interesting." The data package arrived, and Zex Thara's tactical officer immediately began analyzing it. Within moments, his expression changed from amusement to confusion, then to something approaching awe. "Admiral," he said quietly, "you need to see this." The human strategy was unlike anything in the galactic military databases. Instead of the traditional approach of meeting the enemy fleet in open battle, the humans proposed something that seemed almost insane in its audacity. They wanted to use the enemy's own momentum against them, creating a cascade effect that would turn the Corvani's greatest strength into their ultimate weakness. "This is theoretical physics taken to an extreme," muttered the science officer. "A crystalline being whose body literally vibrated with excitement. If it works, it would be the most elegant military maneuver in recorded history. If it fails, we're no worse off than we are now," Admiral Chen said simply. "Admiral Zex Thara, the Corvani have been winning because they're fighting a conventional war against conventional thinking. They've optimized their tactics against known strategies. But they've never faced anything like what we're proposing." Zex Thara studied the data again. The human plan required precise timing, perfect coordination, and a level of risk that bordered on suicidal. It also required every available alliance ship to trust completely in human calculations and follow human orders without question. "Even if your theory is sound," she said slowly, "the logistics are staggering. You're asking me to commit the entire alliance fleet to a strategy developed by a species that's never even fought in a major space battle." Olivin stating, "Actually," Admiral Chen replied, "we've been fighting space battles longer than any species in the galaxy, just not the kind you're familiar with." The cryptic statement hung in the air. Before anyone could ask what she meant, the tactical display began flashing urgent warnings. A massive Corvani fleet had just entered the system, moving directly toward their position. "Speak of the devil," Admiral Chen said calmly. "Admiral Zex Thara, that's the Corvani, 7th Assault Fleet. According to our intelligence, they're planning to break through here and strike directly at the Alliance core worlds. If they succeed, the war is over." The enemy fleet was enormous, over 400 capital ships supported by thousands of smaller vessels. The Alliance forces in the system numbered barely 60 ships, and more than half were damaged from previous engagements. "We should retreat," Commander Yilak urged. "Live to fight another day." "There won't be another day," Admiral Chen said quietly. "This is it, Admiral. Let us show you what humans do when our backs are against the wall." Zex Thara looked at the tactical display, then at the serious expressions of her officers. The war was lost anyway. Traditional strategies had failed repeatedly against Corvani aggression. Perhaps it was time for something completely different. "What do you need?" she asked. Admiral Chen's smile returned, but now it carried something that made Zex Thara's alien heart race with sudden hope. "Just follow our lead, Admiral, and prepare to witness the birth of a new era." On screens across the human vessels, countdown timers began appearing. 5 hours, and counting. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology, or numbers, or superior firepower. It was something far more dangerous than any empire had ever faced. The Corvani fleet continued its relentless advance, unaware that they were flying directly into the most perfectly crafted trap in military history. A trap that would prove that when humans finally decided to enter a war, they didn't just fight to win, they fought to end it completely. The countdown continued, and Admiral Zex Thara found herself believing, for the first time in cycles, that perhaps defeat was not inevitable after all. Perhaps these strange primates from the third planet of an unremarkable star had something that could change everything. She was about to find out just how right she was. The human fleet emerged from behind the moon of Kepler 442c like ghosts materializing from the void. Admiral Zex Thara had expected maybe a dozen vessels, the pitiful offerings of a young civilization trying desperately to prove itself. Instead, she watched in growing amazement as over 200 ships took formation around the Alliance fleet. These weren't the crude metal boxes she'd expected. The human vessels moved with fluid precision, their hulls covered in what appeared to be adaptive camouflage that shifted and flowed like living tissue. More disturbing was their complete silence on all communication frequencies except the encrypted channel Admiral Chen had provided. "How many ships do they have?" Commander Yilok whispered, his usual composure cracking. "Sensors are having difficulty getting accurate readings," reported the tactical officer. "The human vessels are employing some form of stealth technology we've never encountered. They're there, but our instruments keep losing track of them." Admiral Chen's voice cut through the confusion with calm authority. "Alliance Fleet. This is Admiral Chen. We're uploading tactical coordinates to all vessels. Please move your ships to the designated positions and maintain those exact coordinates until further notice." Zexthera studied the positioning data. The humans wanted the Alliance ships scattered across a vast, three-dimensional grid. Each vessel isolated and apparently vulnerable. It went against every principle of fleet tactics she'd ever learned. "Admiral Chen, these positions leave our ships completely exposed. The Corvani will cut us apart one by one. Trust the math, Admiral. Our computers have run this simulation 47,000 times. The positioning is critical to the cascade effect." As the Alliance ships moved into position, Zexthera began to notice something strange about the human fleet's behavior. They weren't just following standard formations. They were weaving between the Alliance vessels in patterns that seemed almost choreographed. Every movement was precise, calculated to the microsecond. "Ma'am," the communications officer reported, "I'm picking up massive amounts of data transmission between the human ships. The volume is unlike anything we've recorded. It's as if every ship is in constant communication with every other ship simultaneously." Admiral Chen appeared on screen again, and Zexthera noticed that behind the human admiral, her crew worked with an efficiency that was almost machine-like. No wasted movements, no unnecessary communication, just smooth, coordinated action. "Admiral Zexthera, in 30 minutes the Corvani fleet will reach optimal engagement range. I need you to understand something about how humans fight. We don't think in terms of individual battles or campaigns. We think in terms of complete victory or complete defeat." The Corvani fleet was indeed magnificent to behold. A wall of destructive power that had broken every military force in the galaxy. Their ships were massive, armored behemoths bristling with weapons that could crack planets. At their head flew the flagship times Dominion's Wrath Asterisk, a dreadnought the size of a small moon. "They're moving into attack formation," reported the tactical officer. "Standard Corvani assault pattern. They'll concentrate fire on our largest ships first, then systematically destroy the rest." But Admiral Chen seemed unconcerned. "Perfect. Right on schedule. Admiral, you're about to witness something that no military academy in the galaxy teaches. The human concept of total warfare." The first Corvani salvo lit up space with deadly energy. Massive plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes streaked toward the scattered Alliance ships. Zexthara braced for the catastrophic losses, but something impossible happened. The human ships moved, not with the ponderous momentum of typical capital ships, but with the fluid grace of dancers. They flowed between the Alliance vessels, their adaptive hulls deflecting and absorbing impacts meant for the larger targets. It was as if the entire human fleet had become a living shield, protecting every Alliance ship with impossible precision. "How are they moving like that?" Commander Yilok gasped. "Those maneuvers should tear their ships apart." Admiral Chen's voice carried a note of pride. "Humanity spent 3,000 years fighting wars on our homeworld. Admiral, we learned that technology means nothing without tactics, and tactics mean nothing without coordination. What you're seeing is the result of that learning." The Corvani fleet adjusted their targeting, focusing fire on the human ships directly. But the humans seemed to anticipate every move. They flowed around incoming fire like water around stones, never where the enemy expected them to be. More incredibly, they began to return fire with weapons that defied conventional understanding. Instead of the expected energy weapons or kinetic projectiles, the human ships launched what appeared to be clouds of metallic dust. The Corvani commanders initially dismissed these attacks as primitive and harmless. They were wrong. The metallic clouds weren't weapons in the traditional sense. They were programmable matter. Billions of microscopic machines that attached themselves to Corvani ships and began rewriting their fundamental systems. Shields that had withstood planet-killing weapons suddenly became permeable. Engines that had never failed began experiencing cascading malfunctions. "This is impossible," breathed the science officer. "They're using nanotechnology as a weapon system. The computational power required to coordinate that many individual units would require. A hive mind," Admiral Chen finished. "Which brings us to humanity's real secret. We didn't just develop artificial intelligence, Admiral. We merged with it." The revelation hit the bridge like a physical blow. Every human ship wasn't just crewed by humans. It was crewed by human-AI hybrid consciousnesses that could process information and coordinate actions at the speed of light. The entire human fleet operated as a single, vast intelligence. The Corvani began to realize something was terribly wrong. Their carefully coordinated assault formations were falling apart as their ship's systems turned against them. Weapons that should have fired on Alliance targets instead targeted other Corvani vessels. Navigation systems began plotting courses directly into asteroid fields or stellar phenomena. "They're trying to retreat," reported the tactical officer with amazement. But the humans weren't finished. As the Corvani fleet turned to flee, the human ships revealed their true purpose. They hadn't been fighting a defensive battle. They'd been herding the enemy into a carefully constructed trap. Space itself seemed to turn against the Corvani fleet. The microscopic machines they'd unknowingly absorbed began creating localized gravity wells, pulling ships off course and into collision trajectories. What had been an organized retreat became a chaotic rout as Corvani ships found themselves unable to control their own movements. "The cascade effect is beginning," Admiral Chen announced. "Every ship they lose makes the rest more vulnerable. Every system that fails creates more opportunities for our nanobots to spread. In approximately 90 minutes, the Corvani 7th Assault Fleet will cease to exist as a fighting force." Admiral Zexthara watched in stunned silence as the most feared military formation in the galaxy tore itself apart. The humans hadn't just defeated the enemy. They'd turned the enemy's own strengths against them. The Corvani emphasis on heavy armor and powerful shields became liabilities when those systems could be corrupted. Their rigid command structure became a weakness when their communication network spread the nanobots faster than any weapon could. "Admiral Chen," she said quietly, "what have you done?" The human's expression grew serious. "We've ended the war, Admiral. Not just this battle, not just this campaign. The war itself. Every nanobot spreading through that fleet is learning, adapting, preparing. When surviving Corvani ships return to their bases, they'll carry our gift with them." The implications were staggering. If the nanobots could spread through the entire Corvani fleet, their entire military infrastructure would be compromised. Ships, weapons, defensive installations, everything would be vulnerable to human control. "That's," Commander Yilak paused, searching for words. "That's terrifying. You could control the entire galaxy." Admiral Chen's smile was gentle but carried an edge of something far more dangerous than any weapon. "We could, Commander. But we won't. Humanity learned long ago that controlling others leads to the same cycles of war and suffering we're trying to end. Instead, we're going to give the galaxy something it's never had before, which is peace through absolute deterrence. After today, every species in the galaxy will know that starting a war means facing humanity. And when humans fight, we don't fight to conquer." On the tactical display, the last Corvani ships were fleeing the system, their once mighty fleet reduced to scattered survivors. The battle that was supposed to last for weeks had ended in less than 3 hours. "We fight to end the fighting permanently," Admiral Chen concluded. Zexthara realized that the galaxy had just changed forever. Humanity hadn't just entered the war. They'd revolutionized the very concept of warfare itself. And somehow, despite the terrifying demonstration of power, she felt safer than she had in years. The age of galactic war was over. The age of human peace was about to begin. 6 hours after the battle began, Admiral Zexthara stood in the observation deck of the Times Eternal Resolve *. staring out at a field of debris that had once been the most feared fleet in the galaxy. Scattered Corvani ships drifted powerless through space, their crews frantically trying to regain control of systems that no longer obeyed their commands. The human fleet had already begun rescue operations, their ships deploying specialized recovery pods to collect survivors from the defeated vessels. It was a gesture that spoke volumes about their intentions. They could have easily destroyed every enemy ship, but chose mercy instead. "Admiral," Commander Yilak approached cautiously. "We're receiving surrender transmissions from the remaining Corvani vessels. They're requesting terms." 1. "Patch them through to Admiral Chen," Zexthera replied. "This is her victory." The main screen activated, showing Admiral Chen's bridge alongside a transmission from the Corvani flagship. The alien commander was a massive, cybernetically enhanced warrior whose species had terrorized the galaxy for generations. Now he knelt before a simple human female, his pride broken along with his fleet. "I am War Prime Korthak of the 7th Fleet," the Corvani said, his translated words heavy with defeat. "I surrender my forces to the human admiral. We request mercy for our crews." Admiral Chen studied the alien warrior with calm eyes. "War Prime Korthak, your crews will be treated according to galactic conventions. However, I need you to understand something about your current situation." A holographic display appeared between them, showing the microscopic nanobots now integrated into every Corvani ship. The tiny machines moved through the vessel's systems like a digital infection, learning and adapting to every piece of technology they encountered. "These nanobots are not just weapons, War Prime. They're teachers. They're learning everything about your technology, your tactics, your empire's infrastructure. More importantly, they're learning about your people." Korthak's scarred features twisted with confusion and fear. "What do you mean?" "The nanobots don't just analyze technology. They analyze behavior patterns, social structures, individual psychology. In the past 6 hours, they've compiled detailed profiles of every Corvani warrior in your fleet. They know your fears, your loyalties, your breaking points." The implications sent a chill through every observer. If the humans could read their enemies that completely, traditional military thinking became worthless. How could you plan strategies against an opponent who understood you better than you understood yourself? Admiral Chen continued, her voice gentle but implacable. "This information will be transmitted to every human vessel, every human colony, every human citizen. If any Corvani ship, anywhere in the galaxy, attacks another species, we will know exactly how to stop them, permanently." War Prime Korthak's cybernetic implants flickered as he processed this information. The Corvani Empire's entire military doctrine was based on aggression and intimidation. If those tactics no longer worked, their empire would collapse from within. "But here's what's really going to happen," Admiral Chen said, and her tone shifted to something almost kind. "The nanobots aren't just in your ships, War Prime. They're in your armor, your weapons, your cybernetic implants. They're studying Corvani biology, psychology, social structures. They're learning how to help." "Help?" Korthak repeated, confused. "Your species has been locked in a cycle of violence for so long you've forgotten there are other ways to live. The nanobots are going to show you alternatives. Non-violent solutions to resource conflicts. Diplomatic approaches to territorial disputes. Scientific methods for advancing your civilization without conquering others." Admiral Zexthera felt her worldview shifting as she listened. The humans weren't just offering military surrender. They were proposing the complete transformation of Corvani society. It was ambitious to the point of impossibility, yet somehow she believed they could do it. "You're going to change us," Korthak said. And for the first time, his voice carried something other than aggression. Fear. Yes, but also a strange kind of hope. "We're going to give you the choice to change yourselves," Admiral Chen corrected. "The nanobots will provide information, alternatives, possibilities. What you do with that knowledge is up to you. But War Prime, I need you to understand one thing very clearly." The human admiral leaned forward, and her expression became deadly serious. "If any Corvani chooses to continue the path of violence and conquest, Every human in the galaxy will know about it instantly. We will respond with the same precision you witnessed today. Not with cruelty, not with hatred, but with absolute certainty. The age of military expansion through force is over. Korthak nodded slowly, his warrior's pride warring with practical acceptance of reality. What of the other fleets? The homeworld? The Empire has millions of ships across hundreds of systems. Admiral Chen smiled, and this time there was something almost mischievous in her expression. War Prime. Did you really think we only targeted your fleet? While we were talking, every human ship in the galaxy activated their nanobots simultaneously. Right now, every Corvani vessel, every military installation, every government building is being quietly infiltrated by microscopic teachers. The scale of the operation was breathtaking. While the galaxy focused on this single battle, humanity had been preparing for simultaneous action across thousands of star systems. They hadn't just planned to win a battle. They'd architected the complete transformation of galactic civilization. The Corvani Empire received this same message 47 minutes ago. Admiral Chen continued, "Your emperor has already agreed to immediate ceasefire and diplomatic negotiations. The war is over. War Prime. Not just your part of it, all of it." Commander Yilak turned to Admiral Zexthara with an expression of pure awe. They ended a galactic war in 5 hours. Not by destroying their enemies, but by making enmity itself obsolete. The communication ended, and Admiral Chen's image remained on the main screen. Around them, the human fleet was already organizing massive relief operations. Ships that hours ago had been weapons of war were now deploying medical facilities, engineering teams, and diplomatic envoys. "Admiral Zexthara," Admiral Chen said, "there's something else you need to know. The nanobots we deployed today aren't just in Corvani systems. They're in Alliance systems too. Every ship, every station, every piece of military technology in the galaxy now carries them." The bridge fell silent. If the humans had the same level of control over Alliance technology, they effectively controlled everything. The balance of power hadn't shifted, it had been completely eliminated. "Are you telling us we're prisoners?" Zexthara asked carefully. Admiral Chen's laugh was genuinely warm. "Admiral, you're telling me you've never heard the human concept of mutually assured peace? The nanobots in your systems aren't weapons of control. They're guarantees of protection. If anyone, anywhere, tries to use those systems for aggressive war, every human will know instantly. But more importantly, so will everyone else." She gestured to her tactical display, now showing peaceful interactions between former enemy vessels. Corvani rescue ships worked alongside Alliance medical teams to save lives. Engineers from both sides collaborated to repair damaged vessels. Warriors who had been trying to kill each other hours ago were now sharing resources and expertise. "The nanobots don't just monitor and control," Admiral Chen explained. "They facilitate communication, translation, understanding. They help species see past their differences to find common ground. They make cooperation easier than conflict." Admiral Zexthara understood finally. The humans hadn't conquered the galaxy. They'd vaccinated it against war itself. By making violence self-defeating and cooperation mutually beneficial, they'd created a new paradigm that made traditional military thinking obsolete. "How long have you been planning this?" she asked. Admiral Chen's expression grew thoughtful. "Humanity has been preparing for this moment for over 3,000 years, Admiral. Every war we fought, every peace we made, every lesson we learned, brought us closer to understanding one simple truth. The only way to end war permanently is to make it impossible to start." In the months that followed, the galaxy would witness the most rapid transformation in recorded history. Former enemies became trading partners. Military budgets were redirected to scientific research and cultural exchange. The Corvani Empire dissolved peacefully into a federation of independent worlds. The Democratic Alliance evolved into something unprecedented. A truly galactic civilization based on cooperation rather than competition. Admiral Zexthara would later write in her memoirs that humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy wasn't their technology or their military prowess. It was their understanding that true strength came not from the ability to destroy enemies, but from the wisdom to turn enemies into friends. The war that was supposed to end civilization had instead ended the concept of war itself, and it had taken exactly 5 hours. Just as Admiral Chen had promised, humanity had finally entered the war. But instead of fighting it, they had simply made it irrelevant. In doing so, they had given the galaxy something it had never known: true peace. The age of humanity had begun not with conquest, but with the gentle revolution of minds choosing cooperation over conflict. And across 1,000 worlds, former enemies looked to the stars with hope instead of fear, knowing that somewhere among them, humans stood ready to ensure that the darkness of war would never fall across the galaxy again.